grant your demand. Are you prepared to return? I am always prepared to return to Delhi. Would you be prepared to die in the form?
Assassin was jailed for almost 2 decades. At the time of our interview, he was 85 years old and recalled every detail.
I'm Gopal Godse, brother of Nathuram Godse. Nathuram Godse was the one who assassinated Gandhiji, then known as Mahatma Gandhi. The year was 1948. I do not repent for having participated in the act. We felt let 10 persons go to the gallows, but let this person not live.
In the Indian capital, Delhi, there are several sites dedicated to the memory of the man to whom the poet Tagore gave the name Mahatma, great soul. The Samadhi, the site Gandhi's body was cremated on a funeral pyre of sandalwood in accordance with Hindu funeral custom. The National Gandhi Museum and Birla House, converted into a memorial museum after Gandhi was assassinated on its grounds. Every day, crowds of visitors flock there from all over the country, Bengal and Kerala, Uttar Pradesh and Manipur. Many Indians, rich or poor, still see it as their duty to make the pilgrimage and pay homage. The atmosphere feels more like a temple than a museum. One room has a series of dioramas depicting key scenes from Gandhi's life. Visitors remove their shoes to approach the spot where the Mahatma fell to the assassin's bullets. Frescoes, photographs, Gandhi's meager personal belongings, his notebooks, walking stick, letters, even his blood-stained clothes. Everything related to the life of the father of the nation has been preserved.
There's something wrong with the school. Something doesn't feel right.
Sophie, what happened?
I think there's something here that's not meant to be.
What did you see?
I saw a nun. What did she do? She's tending her.
This thing, it's come back for me.
This demon was once an angel, rejected by God, stripped of power.
It wants that power back. It's okay to be scared. I'm scared too.
You send that thing back to hell.
Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born in 1869, India was firmly under Britain's imperial yoke. Like his father, he seemed destined to serve the ruling powers. His family belonged to the Baniya caste, hard-working merchants from western Gujarat state. Gandhi's marriage at the age of 13 was arranged. He and his wife Kasturba would have 4 children. When he was 16, his father fell gravely ill. Gandhi's biographers describe him as a devoted son who sat at his father's bedside.
Gandhi felt that he had a duty to nurse his father at the time he was dying, and hopefully he wanted to actually be with him at the hour of his death. But on that particular day when his father became critically ill, he felt more attracted to his wife, and he was actually in the act of making love to her at the moment when his father died. And it's a lot of historians who've looked at Gandhi's life feel that this was really something which coloured his whole attitude to his sexuality and led eventually to his deciding to renounce all a sexual relationship with his wife.
After passing his bar exams in London, Gandhi returned to India to practice law, but soon went on to take up a short-term position in South Africa. He ended up staying for 20 years.
Initially, in his early years, Gandhi in South Africa had lived the life of a rich lawyer. He'd had quite an affluent lifestyle. He hadn't really changed, become this very ascetic person, spun clothes and so on. He was wearing Western-style suits. He was living well.
But then, on a train journey to Pretoria, a white passenger objected to Gandhi's presence in a first-class carriage. And though he had a first-class ticket, he was thrown off the train. He resolved to stay and fight for Indian equality. When he returned to India in 1915, Gandhi was a changed man. The barrister had become a political activist. Trading his English suit and tie for a dhoti, the traditional dress of the Indian poor, he set out to familiarize himself with the social problems in his homeland, traveling by third class. The movement for Indian independence was gaining momentum. Gandhi addressed crowds in every town and village he visited. He spoke of human dignity, justice, and independence. Across the country, nationalists organized bonfire protests to burn textiles imported from England. Gandhi launched his charkha, or spinning wheel movement. He declared it the patriotic duty of every Indian to spin 200 yards of cotton thread a day, and to boycott textiles produced in the mills of Manchester and Liverpool.
Become a symbol of a commitment to the nationalist cause, to every morning to sit down and to get out your spinning wheel, to spin your cotton thread. And they became very skillful at it. You know, they would spend hours every day doing this. And Gandhi saw this as something which was almost a spiritual task of spinning, you know, for the good of the nation.
In 1930, Gandhi led the 3-week Salt March, walking 358 kilometers to the village of Dandi on the Arabian Sea, where he defied the British salt monopoly by lifting and auctioning off a fistful of salt. Gandhi and his followers were arrested, but it was a victory for the man who Churchill contemptuously called the half-naked fakir. Coverage of the march captured the world's attention.
I got Gandhi a un grand sens.
Gandhi had an innate sense of symbolism and mass communication. This seems like a contradiction, paradoxical for a man who came across as an ascetic, as someone who renounced worldly things in search of salvation. But he was a great politician and a great communicator.
Mais c'est un grand homme politique, c'est un grand communicant.
Gandhi's weapons were civil disobedience and non-violent resistance. The British countered with truncheons. Colonial repression was often brutal. Prisons were full. Gandhi was jailed 7 times for a total of 4 years. His protege, Jawaharlal Nehru, 8 times, serving 9 years. From the beginning to the end, the struggle for independence was led by the Indian National Congress Party. Gandhi was its guiding light, Nehru its chief organizer. The two men shared a deep bond, even if they didn't always see eye to eye. Gandhi, from a traditional merchant family, now an ascetic clothed in a dhoti. Nehru, the anglicized Brahmin, well-dressed and elegant, with ideas rooted in socialism.
Somebody like Nehru, who embraced socialism in the 1920s, Gandhi was prepared to tolerate that because he believed that Nehru would always basically be loyal to him. So that he gave Nehru a sort of certain amount of rope, you could say, to go his own way. But Gandhi would always be holding it and able to draw him in whenever he felt, he was going to too great an extreme. And Nehru, well, he knew, that it was in his interest to keep in with Gandhi, but he also had a genuine affection for Gandhi. Nehru's own father had died in 1931. And in many respects, you can see Gandhi as sort of as taking over that position of father figure. And so that they do have a very close relationship, despite the differences.
The two men were very different, not least in their views on religion. Nehru was a self-professed atheist, something rare in a country where refusing to express religious belief is a taboo. Gandhi was deeply religious. He began each meeting with prayers. Life in India is permeated by the values of Hinduism, which assigns a person's caste on the basis of birth. But Hinduism has been traditionally regarded as a tolerant religion, not given to proselytizing.
Whenever I had ice cream or cold water, I would experience a sharp shooting sensation, so I just kept ignoring it. Even my hot chai was giving me the same amount of discomfort. My dentist recommended Sensodyne, so now I can be completely carefree and sip my hot cup of tea. It really works.
Islam had expanded under the reign of the Mughal emperors in northern India to become the country's second largest religion. In British India, Muslims accounted for a quarter of the population. After the country's partition in 1947, that number dropped to 12%. Hindus and Muslims had long enjoyed a peaceful coexistence, until political representation was attached to religious identity. The Muslims emerged as a political force in the 1930s, with the aim of protecting the interests of Indian Muslims. But a new goal emerged: the creation, after Britain's withdrawal from India, of a Muslim nation, Pakistan, or Land of the Pure. The party was led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, who'd known Gandhi for years.
Both Gandhi and Jinnah came from Gujarat. They were Gujarati-speaking people. They were both lawyers who'd been educated in London, received their legal training there. So in a way, they had a lot in common. But unfortunately, they came into very sharp conflict after Gandhi returned to India.
In 1944, Gandhi went to meet Jinnah at his private residence in Bombay. Over the course of almost 3 weeks, Gandhi tirelessly tried to dissuade Jinnah from his plan for a Muslim Pakistan. He assured him that Muslims would have an honorable place in a secular and democratic India. He even offered him the post of Prime Minister in independent India's first government.
Jinnah ne supporte pas.
Jinnah couldn't stand the affection and attention he was shown by Gandhi, because like many Muslims, he viewed it as a patronizing attempt by Hindus to assimilate Muslims. Gandhi saw himself as a universalist. He didn't want to be seen as Hindu, but as Indian. Yet everything about his style, his dress, was typically Hindu. His embrace of renunciatory disciplines and linking of ascetic practice with political aspirations, all that created the impression of a quintessential Hindu.
Shimla, the summer capital of British India. In 1946, the leaders of the Muslim League and Indian Congress Party met here to discuss ways to implement Gandhi's vision of a united, independent India. Nehru's knack for diplomacy failed in the face of Jinnah's intransigence. After 3 weeks, the talks broke down.
Jinnah's campaign centered on a single topic. Congress was a Hindu party with a Hindu leader. If Hindus won the first elections after independence, Muslims would face assimilation and oppression. To survive, they needed their own state, Pakistan.
So in 1946, he decides to take the matter to the streets. Jinnah had been a strictly constitutional politician before then. He'd been loyal to the British. He hadn't ever been involved in civil disobedience campaigns. He'd never adopted the sort of tactics that Gandhi had adopted. But in 1946, in August 1946, he decides to take the issue to the street. He's going to show the power of Muslims in India, that he has the direct action there.
Jinnah's call for a direct action day on August 16, 1946, in support of the demand for Pakistan, sparked an eruption of harrowing violence in Calcutta. 5,000 people were massacred and 20,000 wounded. Most of the victims were Hindu. That led to retaliatory attacks by Hindus against Muslims elsewhere. Reprisal killings spread across northern India. Entire families were slaughtered. Some Hindus now claimed their religion was too passive and lacked martial ardor. To them, the Hindu value of tolerance was an inexcusable weakness, which had for centuries allowed first the Mughal and then the British empires to enslave the Hindu majority. They felt the time had come for Hindus to assert themselves, and for Hindu men to reclaim their prowess.
They wanted to reform Hinduism and boost Hindus' moral and physical strength. In every town and village where the movement had a local chapter, activists convened mornings and evenings for ideological training and physical drills to prepare to fight Muslims who were once again the enemy.
Avec les musulmans, qui sont évidemment, là encore,
While Hindu nationalists massacred Muslims, Muslim League extremists butchered Hindus. Gandhi was horrified. He began a fast in Calcutta, which he vowed to continue until the violence stopped. He refused to relinquish his vision of an India where the two communities could live in friendship and peace.
And Gandhi was watching all this. He was doing his best. He went to East Bengal. He walked around the villages where the Muslims had massacred the Hindu landlords. And he talked to the Muslims. He really put his life on the line. He went without any protection, just a few of his followers walking on foot. And he managed to persuade the Muslims there that it was not right to do this.
As he walked, people would throw glass pieces on the way. They would throw excreta in his path. And his answer to that was to even remove the very simple sandals which he used to wear in order to walk and start walking barefoot. This had a tremendous moral impact, and the parallel that we like to draw is between, in the Christian tradition, the crucifixion of Christ, that is suffering for humanity, tormenting the flesh in order to make the moral appeal.
And then there is other retaliation by Muslims in East Bengal, where they're in the majority. They turn on Hindus and attack them, massacre many. Then Hindus in Bihar turn on the Muslims, and again they do the same in UP. And then in the Punjab, we see the Muslims retaliating by attacking the Sikhs and killing a lot of Sikhs in March 1947. So the whole thing is blowing up in a way that's becoming really completely uncontrollable.
In March 1947, Lord Louis Mountbatten arrived in Delhi. As the last Viceroy of India, he'd been tasked by the British Prime Minister to negotiate an exit deal with Indian leaders. Mountbatten appeared bent on hastening the end of imperial rule, and soon came to favour the option of partition.
Gandhiji said again and again, leave India to anarchy, but don't partition it. We will sort it out. Once you are gone, then we will see how to do it. But the British said, we will go only after you decide who should get what. And that is how partition became absolutely inevitable. So Gandhiji went to the extent of saying that partition could only take place on his dead body.
And then, of course, the Congress leaders decided that they would accept the demand for partition. They felt that Jinnah was able to stir up so much trouble for them that if they didn't concede that demand for a separate nation state of Pakistan, then he would cause terrible disruption within India after independence, and perhaps compromise the integrity of the new Indian nation state. It would perhaps collapse.
Sir Cyril Radcliffe was appointed chairman of the Boundary Commission in charge of equitably carving a Muslim-majority state from British India. He was assisted by 2 Hindus and 2 Muslims, because he himself knew nothing of India. That was why he'd been chosen, to guarantee objectivity and fairness. Most of India's Muslims lived in the north. The plan called for the creation of one state with 2 territories, East and West Pakistan, located 2,000 kilometers apart. But Hindu and Muslim communities in Bengal and Punjab were inextricably mixed. Borders was an exercise in absurdity. On August 15, 1947, the partition between India and Pakistan was made official. As the clock had approached midnight, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India, addressed the nation.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny, and now the time comes when we shall redeem our pledge. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom.
But the very morning after independence celebrations, Hindus in Pakistan and Muslims in India began to flee their homes. Muslims headed for Pakistan, while Hindus set off for India. Enormous convoys of people moving in opposite directions. The greatest mass migration in history. 10 million displaced. Many were. There we spoke to its